Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Hancock Whitney. Hancock Whitney is here for families, here for businesses, here for communities during this challenging time. Visit HancockWhitney.com/COVID-19 for the latest. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas.
From our socially distanced virtual lunch table in Lafayette, we're out to lunch with Christian Mader, publisher and editor of The Current. It's business, Acadiana style.
Hi, welcome to Out to Lunch Acadiana. I'm Aileen Bennett, sitting in for Christian Mader, who's out on paternity leave. During the COVID crisis, we've seen some changes around here. Some businesses we regarded as institutions and others we all assumed were doing great have closed for good. Although we all lose something when a local business closes, as consumers we manage to recover. We find another place to eat a po' boy, drink a daiquiri, or buy whatever it was we used to get at what used to be our favourite place. But during this pandemic, we have come to realise that there are some institutions that are simply irreplaceable. One of them is officially known as the Lafayette Farmers and Artisans Market at Moncus Park. If you're from Lafayette, you know it as the Farmers Market at the Horse Farm. Every Saturday morning since June 2013, the Farmers Market has been selling everything from fresh produce to popcorn and offering experiences from Cajun music to face painting 52 weeks a year. Some Saturdays it's bitterly cold, some Saturdays it's raining, but every Saturday the Farmers Market is open. Or it was, until it wasn't. To catch up what we're optimistically calling post-COVID plans for the Farmers Market, I'm joined today by the Market Director, Mark Hernandez. Mark, welcome to Out to Lunch Acadiana.
Thank you, Elaine. Good morning. We really are appreciative of you having us on and talking all the good things about the market.
We're delighted to have you. Louisiana shares the abbreviation LA with the city of Los Angeles. Although that sometimes leads to some confusion on paper and online, in the real world there's very little overlap between the LA lifestyle in the desert west and the LA lifestyle in the humid south. For example, if I was to say burritos, you'd say Los Angeles. If I was to say po' boys, you'd pick Louisiana. So, how about skateboarding? Naturally, you're going to say Los Angeles, but you know this is a trick question, right? The answer is Lafayette native Daniel Barousse. Daniel Barousse is an artist, a woodworker, and a skateboarder. The combination of these three traits is a company called Barousse Works, in which Daniel makes works of art from recycled skateboards. Daniel, welcome to Out to Lunch Acadiana.
Hello. Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Mark, as consumers, we know how disruptive it was not to be able to go to the farmer's market on Saturday morning. How disruptive was it for the vendors who sell there? How dependent are the vendors, especially the food vendors, on the market? And how were they able to make up for losses during the closure?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. The farmers market is a very unique place in that we are a cooperative of vendors or small businesses from different backgrounds. We've got 5 different categories within the market. So the question is, how did they fare through COVID? My answer would be that it depends on what the vendor was selling. So we have 5 categories. The farm-based category, which represents all the things that you would think of typically that would be produced from a farm: grass-fed beef, produce, honey, anything that you would think would be produced from a farm. Actually, those guys fared very well. And I think the reason for that is that the community realized the very fragile food system that we find ourselves in, and the opportunity to attach themselves to a secure resource of a local grower or farmer was really blossomed. And so our farm-based vendors actually fared very well through. In fact, they created more clientele than they can handle through the last 3 or 4 months.
And what did they do?
Well, one great thing about them being at a farmer's market is that they're able to really attach themselves and create relationships with their clientele and build their clientele on a week-to-week basis. So they build a database of all their customers. And so so they sold from their farms. Some of them would deliver. Some of them would have on-site pickup from their farms. But people sought them out and found them and secured their food.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So those vendors did very well. Some of the other vendors, what we call value-added products or arts and crafts, those types of vendors really struggled because most folks weren't thinking about luxury items or other items that are not necessarily needed for survival on a week-to-week basis. So those vendors struggled, obviously, like we all did.
And we'll come back to that. Daniel,
Sure.
You make pens, coasters, beautiful earrings, tables, and a whole lot more out of recycled skateboards. There's nothing about the finished product that hint at the raw materials of a skateboard. It's an unexpectedly vibrant looking material. Are skateboards made of wood, or is it some composite material?
So it's made of wood. Typically every skateboard is made from 7 plies of hard rock Canadian maple. And they use either a water-based glue or an epoxy to like compress all of those plies together to give you a really hard wood. And by placing the grain on each ply going perpendicular to the next, it makes the wood really strong over a very small distance. But to go from like a skateboard, like an old skated skateboard that has like the grip tape and the paint and stickers and it's curved wood, it's no straight lines, to go from that to like any finished product with recycled skateboards is a lengthy process. But it's so cool because every skateboard, those 7 layers, it's typically they'll dye 1 or 2 of those layers of a vibrant color. And it's honestly just because it looks cool on the side of the skateboard. It's like they've been doing it since the 80s. It might offer some form of an added strength benefit, but I think it just looks cool. So whenever you like go through the process and laminate it, that's where you get the vibrant colors that you're talking about. You get like so many colors and you get the wood grain, and it just looks really cool.
So let's start from the source. How do you get these skateboards? They're obviously not all trashed and busted up. So what has to go wrong for somebody's skateboard to throw it out, and how do you get hold of it?
Okay, so they are all skated. I don't take any skateboards that a kid hasn't skated and deemed it was time for a new skateboard and left that one behind. So I've been in the sales side of skateboarding now for about 7 years. I'm a sales rep for a couple other companies. Whereas that used to be my full-time job, that's now my part-time job, and my part-time job is now my full-time job. Meaning, the Barousse Works is now my full-time job and sales repping is now my part-time. Anyway, throughout that period where being a sales rep for skateboard companies was my full-time job, I built relationships with skate shops all over the country. Like, I became friends with skate shops all over my zone. And at the time, whenever I was that was my full-time job, my territory was 10 states. So over the course of 7 years, I built relationships with the owners, the workers, and then the people that are involved with all these skate shops. So whenever it came time for me to do this, like, it would be, I don't go through that many skateboards to be able to make stuff out. You need a ton, but I have relationships with skate shops, like pretty much all along I-10 is what I do, like from like Austin,
Very clever,
to New Orleans, just a straight shot. And it just works out with like my life and my schedule to where, we're able to go and grab the old board. They're going to throw them in the trash. So instead of like them being thrown out, if you have a broken board, I'm able to take it and recycle it. And it's a lengthy process. You have to do a lot of work to be able to recycle it. There's just no 2 ways about it. It just takes time, but the end result, you get like a really, really beautiful material to work with. And then it's just like anything else. It's just like you're limited to what your creation, your mind can do.
Mark, the way Daniel's managed to he changed his full-time job into a part-time job, but he's combined all these different things he loves to make his life the way he wants it. You've done the same. Tell us the other things that you do to keep that balance in your life.
Yeah, that's interesting. The start that I had in the farmers market world was really through my love of horticulture, landscape work, and what we call market gardening, which is a small scale farm. Lots of the market gardeners have a difficult time identifying themselves as a farmer. But a market gardener specifically is someone who grows for local markets, and typically they're the salesperson as well. So my introduction to the world of farmers markets came through my love of keeping my hands in the soil. The concept of nurturing someone or nurturing a living thing has always been near and dear to my heart from my childhood times of raising small animals in the backyard and growing small gardens. Like the idea of nurturing the health and the growth of a living creature has always just been part of who I am. And so it was a pretty natural transition for me to go from college. Graduated USL in '96 and started my own little small landscape company right thereafter, which allowed me to purchase a small plot of land in North Lafayette Parish. And my wife and I started a small farm called Mark and Mary City Farm. It was an organic produce farm, and we also grew blueberries, blackberries, and a couple acres of fig trees. That introduced me to the world of farmers markets. I became a vendor at some of the local farmers markets when the whole concept of the Save the Horse Farm movement started. I guess it was about 15 years ago now. And that led me to helping to organize the Lafayette Farmers and Artisans Market then. And so the interesting thing to me is that transitioned into a leadership role in there, and I shortly thereafter realized that what a market can do for individuals is in fact nurturing their needs. And so it kind of is like a twofold thing for me. It kind of led me down the path that I think is fruitful.
And the farmers market has this open market model where vendors become a member, and then they can almost kind of just come 3 times a year or every week. So someone like Daniel could come and sell his skateboard, jewelry and furniture there, but not have to be there every single week.
Right. So there's one thing that we hear often at the farmers market, and customers will come up and say, this place, this atmosphere has a certain vibe about it that some other farmers markets may not have. It feels free, it feels lively, honest and open. And so one of the concepts of our original philosophy around the market was that we never wanted the vendor to feel as though they were strapped to the market, meaning it becomes too much of a job, it's too stressful. There's some markets around the country that require their vendors to be there every week, and after 3 misses, they're out. And that's very stressful for a vendor. You can imagine, especially at this time, if they don't have product or it's not reasonable for them to show up, they're punished for it. And so we wanted to create a model that what we call an open market. The vendor pays their annual fees, $50 annual fee. That lets our market board know that they're interested in being active that year, so that way we can manage the product balance in the market. We don't want too much of any one product. We don't want to dilute the market. So if we know that they're going to be there, then we kind of limit the number of that particular item that's available. Then they have the opportunity to show up once a year if they want to, or they can come every 52 weeks out of the year. They prove it, they pay their booth fee, and then they can show up.
You're listening to Out to Lunch Acadiana. I'm Aileen Bennett, sitting in for Christian Mader. I'm talking with Mark Hernandez from the Lafayette Farmers Market and artist and woodworker Daniel Barousse. We'll be right back after this very quick break. You're listening to Out to Lunch Acadiana. I'm Aileen Bennett, sitting in for Christian Mader. I'm talking with Mark Hernandez from the Lafayette Farmers Market and artist and woodworker Daniel Barousse. And I think that matters. People like Daniel, I know that part of your business model is having this freedom. You originally had a full-time job, Daniel, and it took you 9 months to persuade that employee to let you go like on the road and do your job from there. Tell me about, how did you persuade them?
So you're talking about like the van thing. So
yeah, tell us about the van thing.
Yeah, so that's kind of how like woodworking came to be, honestly. So I was the director of sales for an apparel company based in Austin, Texas. And my territory was the central US. And then maybe a year, not quite a year after I'd started working for them, they wanted me to take on the entire western half of the US. They wanted me to be the director of sales for the whole western half of the US, and specifically focus on California's coast, where a lot of the business would lie. And based on my background in sales in the skateboarding world, and in just the action sports world in general, I had learned how, I just could walk in and talk to those guys without a problem, just based on my background, my passions, just what I had done. So it made sense. That was honestly, whenever they were hiring me, they had that in their mind already. So they asked me to do it. And I had just come from a job where I loved it. I worked at this clothing company called Volcom. It's a skateboarding company for 5 years. And I was traveling a ton and having a blast. I was traveling 80% of the time. And I did that for 5 years and I had a blast, but I got to where I was just like anybody, kind of burnt out on traveling so much. After you've done it, I got kind of burnt out. So I took on this job, and part of the appeal of the new job was that I was only going to be traveling 25% of the time, which was enough to scratch my itch, but enough for me to like build a routine at home and, do all the things that I felt like I was needing to do. So I took it. And then whenever they offered this to me, I immediately started thinking like, oh man, I'm going to have to start flying back and forth across the country a lot again if I take on this role. A lot of opportunity, a lot of good things could come from it. But man, I'm going right back to traveling. And I was like, man, I wish I could just like live simple and travel, but like combine the two. And then it hit me. I was driving home to Louisiana. I was living in Austin, Texas. It was a Friday night. It was like 11 p.m. I just crossed over the Louisiana border. And I'm thinking about like the opportunity in front of me and whether or not I'm going to accept the position and the role and the responsibility. And I'm also thinking about the complete opposite, like just being like a super simple person, like not traveling or maybe traveling. And then it clicked and I figured out how to merge the two. And then over the course of 9 months, I had many meetings, budgetary meetings, marketing planning meetings, meetings with the CEO, with the VP, the CFO, trying to figure out how this was going to work strategically. And at the heart of it was like, hey guys, look, here's the raw data. You're going to have me traveling all the time. Like I'm kind of burnt out on that. This would make it fun. Also, you guys don't have to spend all this money flying me back and forth. Like it's a win-win pretty much. You know what I mean? If I do this and I approach them with, hey, this is something I want to do, I will finance it. Y'all don't have to put up any money. You just have to give me full autonomy and let me, be on the road 100% of the time, which was like, kind of complete opposite in what I was going for, but it was in a way that like I'm traveling with my home, and I'm traveling, like it was a new avenue and exciting. So I did that. And whenever I took on this, whenever they gave me, okay, you can do it, let's do it. Like I didn't know how to do any woodworking. I didn't know how to do any electrical. Like I knew nothing about solar panels or like, I didn't know anything, but I took it on and I was like, all right, I had the gumption. I was like, I'm just going to figure it out. So I read books and YouTube videos and I figured it out, and through the process fell in love with woodworking, and that's how.
And it led to where you are today. Mark, you must hear these kind of stories a lot with people coming to be vendors at the market, because for a lot of people, it's their first chance to test what they would really love to do. Some people have full-time jobs and they start off at the market. Tell me, do you see them grow as people? And tell me about the people.
Oh, absolutely. That's my favorite part of the market is getting an applicant who applies to the farmers market, maybe a little bit hesitant to get started, although they have a passion for a particular thing. Those are the greatest. The vendor who will do what they do, whether they make $1 on it or not, is our greatest vendor. We have a very diverse vendor crowd there. Some are very entrepreneurial in spirit. Some are very creative in nature. Some, have their ducks in a row and know every aspect of their product and how much they're making per unit. So the the diversity in what they're there for and what they hope to accomplish is very interesting to me. The vendors that do the best are the ones who are going to do that, whether they make a dollar or not, and their passion comes across to their customer base.
So if there's someone listening right now, or Daniel who's like, oh, I'd like to do that market sometimes, that would be good. How did they, is there an application form, or do they just show up? Tell me the process.
So what we would like for them to do is come out to the market, know what we are about, just come out and see the vendors that we have, see the product, see the atmosphere, and think about, before they apply to the market, there is a process, and I'll get into it, but before they do that, I would encourage them to think about the lifestyle of a farmer's market vendor. So most of these vendors have full-time jobs, and they'll create their product through the course of the week. You can imagine, like the baked good folks, for example. I mean, they're up all night Friday night baking their goods for a 6 o'clock appearance at the market. They're there all day till about 2 p.m. And then typically they go home and crash Saturday night and then try and recoup on Sunday and go back to work on Monday. So it's a very demanding lifestyle if they choose to do it regularly. If it's once a month, it's probably not that big of a deal. So the application process is that we have a board, applications committee, which is made up of 5 of our board members who are either previous vendors or Louisiana Crafts Guild members. So these are folks who have gone through the Louisiana Crafts Guild process and become approved artists through the Louisiana Crafts Guild. They take our application, so someone who's listening could fill out an application on our website. They'll get a response from us saying, we've received your application and we'll process your application. We'd like samples, and then once they're approved, they have access to the market.
Fantastic. Daniel, I looked at your website this morning, and I think this is the question that all creatives get asked at some point. Do you consider yourself more artist or craftsperson, or is it a combination?
I'd say more of an artist, I suppose. I mean, you can't be one without the other, but I would say it's more of an art, just because of, I mean, one person could do the exact same thing and they could classify themselves that way and they wouldn't be wrong. But I view it as more of an art, just because it's, everything comes from like a very passionate place. And you're moving more towards those kind of artistic commissions rather than just producing stuff to sell. Yeah. That's what, like, ideally, that's what I would just be doing. And honestly, that's kind of where I'm at. The bulk of what I do is like, I do custom commissions primarily, but I'm getting more into like, just doing what I want, and it being okay. So yeah, it's that combination. And it is for everyone at the farmers market, between art and being able to sell your art. And the more you make a name, the more you get to do what you want to do. And Mark, you must see that with vendors, how they start at the farmers market and then a few years later what they're producing. Yeah, what we tell the folks that are vendors is, we say, whatever your story is, whatever drives you, make that part of your marketing. Create a story, and let your customer know who you are, and through that connection, your sales will naturally go up. So Daniel, how do you, apart from online, obviously I can see your website, but how else do you sell your stuff at the moment? Have you ever done a farmer's market? So I've never done a farmer's market. I've thought about it, but I've done like festivals. I've done like Festival International, which was that was the first time I ever showcased any of my work outside of custom commissions. So that went really well, and I did Festival Acadienne, and then I had quite a few others lined up, but naturally, like with the with everything that happened, it just those, they got canceled. So it was just like, I just do, mostly custom work. But I'm getting more and more into the zone of just doing whatever I want to, and that being sufficient. So that's like, every like artist's dream, so that's where it's going. But it's a balance between like that and running a business. Like, you can't be, it's like anybody, it's like anybody else. It's the same struggle of anything. You figure out what you need to do to be successful, and then what you need to do to be happy. And then you find the balance, and you be, it's just like anything else. it's the same thing. Everybody's doing the same dance.
Mark, do you think, on the same note, that people having to take a break from the farmers market will make them more creative because they've had time to rethink that combination of how to sell stuff and how to make yourself happy?
Yeah, absolutely. One interesting thing that we've discussed with lots of our art vendors is that the utilization of the market for artists in particular is more of an opportunity to expose their works, not so much a place to sell, although they do make sales, but it's really about getting their name out and being able to expose their works to a broader audience. And
Daniel, have you found yourself being more creative during this time, or were you?
Oh yeah.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This has been it's been a challenging time, but on certain levels, it's been just in my world, just because I'm already in isolation, I'm in a box, all day, just working with wood. So, but it forces you to just delve deeper into that. And it's been positive in that sense. Of course, it's there's challenges that come with it, but it's that aspect has been good. It's just I find myself definitely having an easier time just getting into the flow and really just losing track of time while I'm working, which is that's my favorite thing in the world.
It's awesome. Mark, a final question for you. We know that there's a new park coming. We're not quite sure when. What happens with the market in that new park?
So the market will remain as is. We're very, very excited about the opportunity to have a new farmers market pavilion, which will be established kind of behind where the Red Barn is. For those of you who are familiar with the park, there's a beautiful old red barn. So the farmers market pavilion will be located right behind there. The market, I think, will just blossom even further once the park is open. So now the market is exposed to only those who are coming specifically for the farmers market. When that park is open, there'll be so many more opportunities for us to expose our vendors and all the great things of the market to a much larger audience. So it'll just continue to grow. We're going to stay open through construction.
Excellent. I think we're all looking forward to that. And maybe we can get Daniel there some week as well. And that would be...
I need to go. I honestly have been needing to go. And then the pandemic hit and it was just so wild. But before that, I talked to Mark. I was because I was, I help my girlfriend. She was doing the farmers market all the time. And, it's definitely something I need to do. So Mark, I do need to get with you on that.
We'll make it happen. I started out today talking about the distinction between LA, as in Louisiana, and LA, as in Los Angeles. In the grand scheme of things, Lafayette, Louisiana is a small town, and Acadiana is a uniquely distinct part of America, insulated by the mainstream by bayous, swamps, language, and culture. But strangely, we're not wanting for anything here. If you didn't know this show was made in the Louisiana variant of LA, and you just heard us talk about vibrant farmers market and an artist who make pieces of sculptural functionality out of recycled skateboards, you might assume we were talking about the second largest city in America, rather than the fourth largest city in Louisiana. Mark and Daniel, thank you for everything you do to make Lafayette and Acadiana the rich and rewarding place it is to live in. And thank you for joining me today on Out to Lunch Acadiana.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
My guests on Out to Lunch today have been Mark Hernandez, Market Director of the Lafayette Farmers and Artisans Market, and Daniel Barousse, artist, woodworker, and owner of Barousse Works. We edited this show to fit in the time slot here on KRVS. You can hear our unedited conversation and find out more about the farmers market and recycled skateboards by listening to the Out to Lunch Acadiana podcast. You can find and subscribe to the Out to Lunch Acadiana podcast anywhere you get podcasts and on our website, itsacadiana.com. If you want to know what we all look like, you can find photos from this show on itsacadiana.com on our Out to Lunch social media. These photos were taken today by Jill Lafleur. You can find out more about Jill's photos at lafleurphoto.com. We'll be going back to hosting Out to Lunch at the French Press soon. In the meantime, they're open and you can go there Wednesday through Sunday. Out to Lunch Acadiana is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsacadiana.com and KRVS 88.7 FM. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Morrell. Our associate producer is Molly Richard. Our researcher is Maggie Mendel. I'm Aileen Bennett. I'm sitting in for Christian Mader, who's on paternity leave. Either Christian or I will be back here next week. We look forward to seeing you then around our virtual lunch table for more business Acadiana style on Out to Lunch Acadiana.
Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Hancock Whitney. Hancock Whitney is here for families, here for businesses, here for communities during this challenging time. Visit HancockWhitney.com/COVID-19 for the latest. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com.